The tendency in tripod headstand is that the elbows will wing out like this, and that's just a lack of rotator cuff strength. But it's also a lot of times that people's hands are too close together. If you take your hands wider, you can usually get a little more access to those rotator cuff muscles. So what you can do right now is you take your arms up shoulder height and horizontally adduct the arms so that they're together, and then abduct them until they're about a little slightly wider than shoulder width, and then keep your elbows where they are but dial your hands outward. And what you'll probably feel is these rotator cuff muscles, the external rotators right on the back of your shoulder blade there. If you don't move your elbows, but you keep them and you dial your hands out, you're gonna feel those muscles activate. And those are really great stabilizers of the shoulder girdle. And then in addition to that, in tripod headstand, we can still focus on that protraction of the scapula that we were doing for crow pose. And wall is behind you, please. I'm gonna take my head down. Typically, like, forehead starts to land not so much in an equilateral triangle, a little bit closer to my hands, so that when I roll onto the top of my head, it's gonna be more of an equilateral triangle. Arms are exactly as I mentioned earlier. Fingers are gripping the ground. The elbows are gonna be, hands are gonna be shoulder width, and you're gonna work on dialing the elbows in by rotating the arms out. Okay. And I start with my forehead on the ground, and then when I lift up like I'm coming to down dog, I then point my feet and I roll onto the top of my head here. One knee to the outer arm, and then the other knee. And again, I just squeeze in. Here I am in my tripod crow pose. Now, again, the wall is behind you. And two things. Fingers are gripping the ground, which is helping me to find my balance. The other thing is I'm pressing the head as if I'm looking to the ground with my whole head, as if I want to face my face towards the ground, so that the back of my neck muscles engage. If I were right side up, I'd be looking this way, okay? And then with the resistance of the ground, pushing my head up like this is going to activate my neck muscles and maintain a little bit of a curve in my cervical, which is a really good thing to have. There's two ways you can go from the crow variation, like this, which I like. And then you can squeeze your knees in as you bring your hips back, more like anterior tilt. And then you can slide your legs up, try not to touch the wall, okay? That's one really good way. Knees in, then knees out, crow pose to come down, right? And then you learn that transition from headstand to crow on the way out, and you can eventually delay it, okay? The next variation that you could do, instead of going through crow, just so you have another option, is you go through standing splits. So you're here, take one leg up, standing splits. And then you take the slow, you try to not touch the wall. I come up, knees outside the arms, fingers grip the ground, elbows in. Now to go up, I have to lift my butt up a little bit, so I lean a little towards the wall and squeeze my knees in. And again, anterior tilt, stick the bum back just slightly, will help you take the weight of your legs up. Then try to vacuum your feet straight up and down. And this is where most people fall over, so it takes a little time to work that out. Notice my arms are trying to stay steady. Fingers are still gripping the ground. Head is looking towards the earth. Next step, I bring the knees down slow into that tucked position, butt back a little bit to help me as I transition. Then widen the knees to the outer arms. Here's where you have to sit your bum down. And it does help to relax the elbows a little. And you lean back into towards your feet, look up. And then you get to this point here, you gotta squeeze back in and get to your crow pose and push. Okay, and it's all about timing. Doing it slow is hard. So what I suggest is just lean back a bunch of times and come to your feet before you try to catch yourself in the balance. So okay, so you come on up, you tip from the front of the head to the top of the head. You could take one leg up and do the standing split variation, or go into tripod crow, bring the knees in and stick your bum back, vacuum upward. My fingers are gripping the ground. My arms are doing that external rotation that we talked about, so my elbows are staying over the wrist and not winging out this way. For those of you that have wrist pain, it's because your elbows are going too far out. You might have to take your hands wider. Okay, then come back down, widen the knees. Lean back, start to look forward as the weight comes out of the head, and then push to get yourself into that crow pose position, and that's a lot.